Hello, hello, everybody. Happy New Year. And I couldn't be more excited today because I am with one of my favorite people. Hi, Tina. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here with you, Darshana.
Oh, I think I've been looking forward to this day for a while. You are a true rock star and um, one of the very pioneers in this field. So I'm really, really grateful that you took the time to come and speak with me. Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, certified sex therapy supervisor. I run an institute called the Northwest Institute on Intimacy that trains physicians and other medical providers, therapists, educators, clergy on sexual health and understanding their sexual biases so that they can serve people with more awareness and truth and compassion. And then I also run an institute called Anana Rising, which is for psychedelic assisted therapists and prescribers around supporting them in their work in order to bring more health and healing to people who need it most in that area. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm also partnered and I have 4 grown kids and 2 beautiful granddaughters, and they're the light of my life and stuff that keeps me from working too hard. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Tina, for all the great work you're doing in this field. And now you guys know what I meant by rock star. So how'd you get into this? Like, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, it really it was set up long before I realized it. It certainly wasn't. I didn't set out to kind of go in this direction. Life invited me there, kept inviting me there. Um, but I grew up in a Swedish immigrant home that was very body and sex positive. I didn't know that because it was just my family, but I came to understand it much later in my life as I saw people's shame and reactivity around sexuality. And I would be like, I don't understand why they're so reactive about that. Like, that's just a body part, or that's just a this, or that's just a that. And it just kind of fascinated me and perplexed me, but also made me deeply sad because some people were living in so much pain, both physical and emotional pain, because of the shame that they grew up with and the lack of knowledge and awareness. So they had a lot of mythology about bodies or sexuality and not the joy that I just believe that we're meant to experience. So that led me into teaching graduate students in sex and sexuality, working in medicine, writing 2 books on healing from sexual shame and also how to raise your children. I mean, it just kept evolving because people kept needing it and I kept enjoying teaching it. So, yeah, that's kind of how it kept going.
You are right about life inviting you, and
Mhm.
you listen to the invitation.
Yeah.
That actually is one of the reasons why I want to talk to you today about raising children. Because, as you know, I work with sexual health. I primarily work with sexual pain. And a lot of times, what I see is things that were done early on. Sort of like what you said, you didn't realize your family's superpower because that was just family for you. And
Right.
for some people, it's the other way. They get,
Yeah.
they receive very negative or scary messages,
Mm.
whether
Mhm.
that is from their family or culture.
Mhm.
So, what I was hoping we can talk about today is some of the things we can do right while raising the next generation,
Mhm.
right? At least set them up for success when it comes to sexual health. And a lot of times, um, people don't consider sexual health as a part of overall health. And
Right.
given the work that you and I do, we see that it permeates every sexual health is never about sex. It's just about your overall health. So with that being said, um, what are some of the things parents can do to sort of foster a sex positive environment at home?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say first we have to deal with our own sexual shame because it's from our place of shame that we feel reactive when our kids are just being kids. They're just being themselves, you know? So, and when it comes to our bodies and curiosity and what feels good, little ones are masters of that. I mean, that's exactly the world that they live in. And so they're about a year old when they discover their genitals. They could be getting their diapers changed or in the bathtub or something, and their hand lands there basically. And they're like, wow, oh, it feels lovely here. It feels like kind of good, in that part of our bodies, we have more nerve endings than almost anywhere else. And so it is responsive to our touch naturally. And so anytime a child experiences pleasure with anything, they want to do that thing again. It could be things to eat. It could be the inside of their bunny's ear that's soft and silky, or the edge of their blanket. It could be, it's just about anything, getting a hug, you know, things that feel good to children, they want to do more. We are, as humans, hardwired for connection and pleasure. We come out of the womb that way, and we are immediately seeking the breast, even though the milk isn't down yet. And it's because the smell is wonderful to us. The feel is wonderful to us. We hear the heartbeat, that's comforting to us. So we are about connection and pleasure. And that's exactly what we see with humans as soon as they're born. We see it with people with Alzheimer's, that they don't have a memory, but they are still seeking connection and pleasure every day. We are that way every single day of our life. Now, we can get talked out of that. We can get that hurt or injured in us. And that can make us recoil against pleasure or whatever. But that's not the way that we naturally are. That's not our nature. Our nature isn't to recoil against pleasure and connection. So, what happens so often in families is that because parents have shame from their own childhoods, from somebody else shaming them when they found their genitals, when they were curious about somebody else's body, or when they said something, whatever that had to do with bodies and sexuality, they get reactive, like their insides go, and they either come out with a, ah, don't, or ah, some kind of big emotion, or they get really, really silent, and they just kind of look at the child like, and they just grab them and they move them or they do something, right? That's that's all from your place of shame, right? When kids discover, other things, we're like, oh, that's a tree, or oh, that's an ear, or oh, yep, we don't stick the core of our apple in our ear because that's not where it goes, but let's go take it to the trash can. We just take their curiosity in stride. But often when it comes to bodies, we react. And that's only because somebody reacted to us. It's not a natural response, it's because somebody else did that to us. So the first thing to do is to try and get ahead of your own shame and deal with it. And I'll talk a little bit about the book Shameless Parenting, because I wrote it specifically for parents who didn't get what they needed growing up, right? And I
Hmm.
just say, here's what they're going to do at this age. How do you think you'll feel about that, to try to get them to notice if they've got shame inside? And then I give a bunch of questions for how to heal that shame, things to think about, things to read, all kinds of things. And then I talk about what the kiddos need, and I talk about the top books for kids at all. But it's really helping them identify where their shame is, how to heal it, how to be compassionate towards themselves, and then how to give your kiddo that thing from birth to two, two to four, four to six, six to eight, all the way up to 18. And I always say to parents, hon, you don't have to figure it all out. All you need to do is be 2 years ahead of your kids. That's it. And I'll help you do that. And then we'll just do it step by step. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful because it sounds like, as human beings, we crave connection, and the very first one is connection with yourself. And I think that's just what we're doing. We're trying to connect with ourselves, and you're on point with a lot of us, with everywhere in parenting, not just sexual health. You just got to fix your shit so you don't
Yeah.
transfer. Um,
Hmm.
so when you talk about like 2 to 4, 4 to 6, what are some of the, like, what is sex education? Like, everybody
Yeah.
takes away different definition of sex education, right? So
Right.
can you help us understand what is comprehensive sex education?
Yeah, exactly. In the Northern European countries, they call it often life education, because it's about Let's help you know how to do relationships well. Let's help you know how to have relationship with your own self and your own body well, and to see it as good and how you care for it and all that. And let's have some, so it's really like emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, and then body intelligence and sexual health
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. That comes later. But it's things like, for example, um, uh, you're building awareness and skills in managing emotions, in setting goals, in establishing relationships, in making responsible decisions that support your own success in your own life and in your relationships. So it's things like um, improving self awareness and social awareness, recognizing emotions in self and in other people, resolving conflicts constructively. So it's things like boundaries, right? Knowing where you begin and end and someone else begins and end. Body autonomy. This is your body. That is their body. You're in charge of your body. They're in charge of their body. People have to ask before they can touch you. You have to ask
Yeah.
before you touch. So these are like, body autonomy kinds of things. Respect, learning that other people are glorious human beings, as are you, and we treat each other with respect. We learn how to use our words. We don't, like hit and whatever. We're going to learn to say what we need to say in a way that can be understood. And we're going to learn to listen to other people. If they say no, we believe them, you know, understanding what's important to you, what your values are, what feels right and what feels wrong to you, who is special to you, why are they special to you, respecting and noticing differences and respecting differences, seeing differences as beautiful, differences in nature, differences in humans, and just seeing that that's a glorious thing. Learning to say no, learning to hear no, learning to say yes and mean it, right? And if you don't, to say, I don't know, let me think about it, right? Recognizing your feelings, knowing how to put words to your feelings so they match what's happening on your inside, understanding who is family and what is family, what makes a family, what feels nice and what doesn't feel nice, what's good touch, what's bad touch, what's secret touch, right? How to set a goal, how to make a plan, how to be a friend, what a good friend is. I mean, these are all the kinds of skills that we are teaching because it lays the foundation for relational success, right? And social success and a sense of confidence in myself because I know where I'm separate from someone else. This is all what we want them to have as we go into kind of fourth grade on, where we're going to start talking about and we've up to this point we've labeled the body, right? And we've helped
Yeah.
them understand it's a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
part. We've given them some social cues or some social rules, like when we want to touch ourselves. This doesn't happen till like 3 or 4 do they start even remembering this. When we want to touch ourselves, because it's a wonderful part of your body, we use our bedroom or the bathroom. Everybody in our family does that. That's a social rule that we have. You have to say it a million times, but you've
Mm-hmm.
given them help them do those things like naming the world and that kind of thing, because that's what they want to do. And the body is part of that. And how others are different is part of that. So there's a little bit of this. But then when we get into like fourth grade or so, we start the conversations about what sexually transmitted infections are, what contraception is, what reproduction is, what puberty is, how the body changes, why it changes, cool things going on in the brain, some of that stuff. And then we get into more interpersonal, intrapersonal skills of communication and how to do that when your peer group is becoming more important to you. So, how to hold on to yourself. And even I like to teach things like, when it feels too hard to say your truth, like um I can't stay on the phone late at night, or I can't be on my text, when that feels too hard to say or whatever, use your parents as an excuse. And I say to parents, let them use you as an excuse. Let them say you're just so mean, so therefore you're taking their phone away at 10 o'clock, and actually it's a deal that you've made together, because they are an introvert and they need their time, or they start to unravel, or whatever you need to do. So you help them as they're negotiating that second stage of not just learning about themselves, but now we're their peer group is becoming more and more important, and they're going through all those stages again, but now navigating it with a peer group. So, and those things get more, those things we talk about as kids are getting older become more and more complex. They're just the more and more complex things, which is why I put it in the book that way, because there's certain things we talk about at certain ages, and there's other things that we don't talk about for maybe a year or two or three or four later, but they all build on each other,
Yeah, very
so
much so. Yeah. It's wonderful that you're creating parents as sort of like a safe space where
yes.
that's then giving them a landing strip, so to speak, to then use them as an excuse. But when you think about like really early stages before kids are
Hmm.
in school, less than
Hmm.
5 years of age, what
Hmm.
what do you recommend? Like, do you have these
Yeah.
conversations with your children, or do you wait for them to be curious and just be answering the questions that they ask? And how do you kind of keep that balance of giving them the information they're seeking, but also not necessarily trying to give them a sex ed class when they're not even
Hmm.
thinking about it?
Right, exactly. That's kind of why I put the book together that way, because kids, there are certain things they're going to be curious about at certain ages, and what you need to do is be paying attention to that. They are going to find their genitals somewhere between a year and two. Somewhere in there, they're going to find them. And so you want to, just like finding noses and finding ears, you want to be there to label them. It's a wonderful part of their body. We take care of that part of our body like we take care of every other part. And that's really pretty much it. That's all you're saying, right? When they're two and they can't yet hold the remembering of using the bedroom or the bathroom yet, you're just again saying, oh, I noticed that you're touching that part of your body. That's a wonderful part of your body. And sometimes you're just letting it be when they're like two. If you're out somewhere, you'll say, go ahead and take your hands out of your pants. We're going to wait till we get home, you know, but understand that they're not going to hold that instruction for another year or two. I mean, they can
Yeah,
stop doing it right then in the moment. Yes, they can do that. But they might forget a half an hour later, or an hour later or whatever. And so it just takes time to get there. And so there are just certain things, but like, 5-year-olds, 5 and 6-year-olds are starting to become really curious about the other people's bodies, like
mhm,
4, 5, 6, right? And they're going to be saying, you know, I don't know, whatever they're going to say, mommy has boobies, and so, yes, they do. And da, 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 and it's a wonderful part of our bodies and da, 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 da. And you're just giving that information. But let's say you walk in on two kids that are the same age that have their pants down, right? Really normal curiosity. How are you different from me? Do you look like me? You know? And so you're just like, oh, there you are. You're curious about each other's bodies, aren't you? Good for you. Let's get our clothes on and go back to playing. You just let it be, and you normalize it and you give them the information that they need. But you don't go in that moment into, let's talk about how babies are born. Even if kids come home at 6 and say, how are babies born? So and so said such and such at preschool today or at kindergarten today. You'd be like, well, what a great question. Tell me what you actually want to know. Do you want to know
mm,
where they come from the body? Do you want to know if you buy them at the grocery store? What do you want to know? Tell me what you want to know, because sometimes what they're wanting to know is actually really little. Like, well, but if it, my friend's going to have a little brother or a little sister and their mommy's tummy's getting really big. Does that have something to do with it? Yeah, actually it does. And then you explain the babies grow inside of, you can call it the tummy right then. You can change it later, right in this front part of our body. It looks like our tummy. That's where they're growing. Well, yeah, it's a pretty wonderful thing. And then the babies come out of the body. Just say that. Maybe they're not curious about where they come out of the body, but maybe they are. And they will say, well, where do they come out of the body? Do they come out where the poop comes out? And you're like, no, actually, people that are born with vulvas have a place called a vagina, and it leads to an inside area where babies grow, and the baby comes out that area right there. Oh, okay. So, you just are giving them the little bit that they want, and finding out what exactly they want, because you'll be surprised. Sometimes they only want to know a little bit because it's just where their brain is right then, you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is so wonderful, because I remember having those conversations where, just as we're reaching school, so I have like 30 seconds left. I'm already late for work, and there's an important question from the car seat from behind. And I'm like,
That's right. Exactly.
all right, I'm just gonna give you one sentence answer because I'm pretty sure that's all you want to know, right? But often as parents, we want to like take a deep dive and consider this the talk and start from A and end on Z. So it's just
Mhm.
sometimes they just want to know what they want to know, and they don't want to know before and after, right?
Right.
Um,
And I really want to dispel the idea of the talk. If I could get anybody to kind of vanquish anything from their brain, vanquish this idea of a talk. Okay. Because kids don't learn things in one fell swoop. They learn things a little bit
mhm.
along the way. And it's like anything, it's like math. We don't give them calculus in kindergarten, right? We leave them out to calculus. It is just like that with health and wellness, right? And
Yeah.
and so imagine that you're going to give 100 1-minute talks every year. Every year. One little, maybe not even 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds. Just these little sound bites their whole life. Because then what they're going to see you as is an absolute resource rather than somebody that's so freaked out by it that they have to like download all this stuff, and you can feel their tension and anxiety. And so you don't ever want to ask them anything again, right? You just want to be like calm and give them a bleep.
So, how do you sort of, with your own child, you kind of know where they're at, what previous conversations you've had, and sort of some general knowledge of what's age appropriate for them, right? But how do you kind of navigate the challenges that today's parents are facing with this almost like digital exposure of exclusive content that, with all the safety things in place, with all the parental controls, it seems like it's inevitable that the kid's going to probably be exposed to something that's not appropriate for their age, right? So, do you have
Right.
any wisdom on how to kind of handle those situations?
Yeah. Again, understand that this is still many years down the road, right? So the average child is exposed to pornography on somebody's device around the age of 9. Now, you've had 9 years up to this point. So I'm like, you don't even need to broach the subject until they're like 8,
Hmm.
but you've had many years that you've been practicing other things that help them feel confident about themselves and help them feel confident about you. And they've come to understand their bodies through you. And all of there's been many, many experiences before you get to that 8, 9 range. And that's why, like in the book, there's birth to two, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, then 8 to 10, we start talking about here's how. So we've already gone through lots of things. We've had lots of books around the house. I've been reading lots of books, so we're feeling pretty prepared. And then I talk about this is how you talk about it, right? You say something to the effect, you know how we're sometimes on computers or somebody's has, what a iPad is or whatever. If you're with a friend or something, you might get or somebody has a phone, someone might show you something that involves naked people that ends up being very confusing, sometimes scary, but sometimes just confusing. Sometimes it can give you a funny feeling inside. There's stuff out there in the world that we call adult entertainment, and it's actually not for kids. But the thing is, kids are finding it, and so because it's not for kids, it can feel big and scary and overwhelming. And I just want you to know that if that ever happens, I want you to really come and talk to me about that, because I want the opportunity to explain to you what it was you saw. Like, have you describe it to me and then explain it to you what it was and help you put it in context so that that feeling that you have, like, oh no, or I'm going to get in trouble for this, that feeling can go away, because I don't want you to carry that, because you didn't do anything wrong. It's totally okay to be curious. I just want you to have the information that you need. And the reality is that sometimes there are things going on out in the world that aren't happening here in our home that aren't always good for kids. And some of them, and so I'm also, part of my job is to protect you and try to help you understand and be prepared.
Yeah,
So that
that's
kind of thing.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So along the same lines of, when you're giving them tools to how to be safe in the world
Hmm.
outside, what
Yeah.
are some of the basic language mistakes parents make when it comes to navigating sexual health?
Hmm.
Are there things that we should say more of or not say when it comes to giving our kids the language
Hmm.
around these
Yeah.
topics?
I would say that try to remember that your children are more sensitive to your emotional state even than to your words. So pay attention to your emotional state. Try to keep yourself in a calm place. Take a deep breath. Say, Can I have 5 minutes? I need to go to the bathroom." Or, "I have 5 minutes. I want to think about this. And then I want to come back and talk about it." But try to keep yourself in a calm state, or calm yourself before you talk about it, before you react, even on your face. Take a deep breath. I have a friend that says, "Put on a happy face. Even if you're not feeling it on the inside, put on a happy face, because if they know you're okay, then they're going to be okay." Right? So start there. Then if it's language, I would just again ask the child more questions, so you know exactly what they're asking from you. um, and if they're not asking that thing, don't go there. Just wait. The time will come. And again, that's why I think people get so worried about, "Oh, what do I say and when do I say it?" and all of this. That's sort of the reason that I put together the book that way. It's like, you only need to be aware of this stuff right now. The other stuff is coming. You don't need to jump into it. So I think that anxiety, again, is what the kids feel, is your anxiety, right? And your own shame. So trying to help people do their own shame work ahead of their kiddos helps them to actually find, when they start doing these things, it's like, "Oh, yep, I knew this was coming. Yep, here it is." And they can find more delight in their child, because their child's just what I call fulfilling their job description, right? They're just being their age, you know. And you can find more delight in it than having it scare you and freak you out.
Yeah, yeah. It's an important message to meet your child where they're at.
Hmm.
In terms of sort of talking about, we talked about self exploration and self discovery. Essentially, they're just discovering themselves. But now,
Hmm.
as we move on to masturbation, like what are some things that are important for that conversation with your child?
Yeah, so let's talk about what masturbation is and what it isn't. Okay. Kids are going to find their genitals somewhere, like I said, between a year and 2 years old, and they're going to love that part of their body. That is not masturbation. What that is comfort. That is comfort. That is, think of it as like I said, the inside, soft part of their bunny's ear. It is a part of their body that brings them comfort. It feels good and it's on them, which is a magnificent thing. I think it's wonderful that we have these parts of our body that we can access ourselves. So all they're doing, from a year old until puberty, really, puberty starts in, they're comforting themselves. And if you find that your child is doing it a lot more than usual, that's an indicator to you that they have anxiety about something. Okay.
They're
And
trying
then
to.
they're trying to soothe themselves, right? It's just like they've got their thumb in their mouth more, or they've got their blankie more, or whatever. It's just the same thing. So you're just going to find out what's going on for them, that they're feeling more anxious, and you're going to try to find many ways to comfort them, as opposed to just having one way, right? Or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just that we all need more than one way. All of us do.
Hmm.
When they get into puberty and their hormones get on board, then that sense of drive, that sense of, I want to move through my arousal cycle. I want that feeling because I want to get somewhere with it. That feeling comes from hormones primarily, right? Testosterone. And with boys between 13 and 15, they're getting 20 times the amount of testosterone produced in their body than before. That's like going from a glass of milk to 2 gallons of milk, right? It's a lot different. And so they're going from a bicycle, I always say this, a bicycle to a rocket ship. And so it's helpful to say, "Sweetheart, when you're going through puberty, this is one of the things that's going to happen. You're going to start to feel this feeling. and you're going to want to move through your arousal cycle. Basically, it's the evolutionary um, experience of your body to keep our species going. The problem is you're 14. You're not going to be using your sperm to keep the species going, but you are going to feel this feeling, and I want you to know how to take care of it, right? And so I want you to have your own autonomy around it. I mean, I have 4 kids. My oldest was a boy, and when he was getting to be that age, I got a hold of one of the lube manufacturers and said, "Can you send me a box of little packets of lube? Because I don't want them using lotion or anything that could hurt them or whatever, or soap or, I want them to, if to at least have that. And I also as a way to say, this is yours, this is your life. I want you to be responsible with your body and take care of your body, which includes this. And I want you to clean up after yourself. I don't want to be finding socks in the corner. I don't want to be, if you need to change sheets, let me know. Change your sheets. I'll get you new ones, whatever the deal is. This is a normal part of your life, and I want you to feel in charge of it. Um, that part. And with girls, it's the similar. Your body is going to be gearing up for this, and so you might feel this too. And with girls, I like to take the time to explain their whole vulva, right? The whole area. And I'll get out a drawing that shows that actually the parts are very similar between those that are born with vulvas and those that are born with penises. And they just are ordered in particular ways, but that all this tissue is a tissue that has a lot of nerve endings, and it's wonderful. But again, it's private, it's yours. And with girls, there's extra messages I give to girls and boys if they're, because I think there's some particular dangers out there where I'll be like, this is your body, and no one has the right to touch it or whatever without your permission. And to be honest, I really want you only to bring close to you people that want to know what it means to honor you, to treat you like a goddess, right? And if they're not going to do that, if they want you for their own pleasure and not for yours, then that is not somebody that deserves you. You need to decide who deserves you. And I believe, as your parent, I believe that you deserve only the best treatment in this world. But I can't be with you all the time. So you're going to have to take that forward, right? So I give some messages like this. With boys, I'm giving messages, and I'm doing this the whole time they're growing up. I'm helping them understand power, right? So if they are taller, bigger, older than someone else, I'm listening for them being normal kids trying to get their way. But if they're doing it in a way with somebody who's younger, who's going to say yes, but it's not really an equal thing, like, I'll give you a sucker if you clean my room or something like that, then I swoop in and I say, does that feel fair? If you were 4 and they were 8, would that feel fair to you? And they will say, because kids know these things, right? They will say, no, that wouldn't be fair. Say, okay, well, we call that an abuse of power. Your power is you are older in age, you're smarter so far, and you're bigger. And so you have the ability to manipulate or influence in a way that's not fair. But because of your power, I need for you to be responsible to that power, and that your power serves love and justice. So if it's not fair, it's not serving justice. You need to think about that all the time. If somebody is same size as you, same age as you, bigger than you, whatever, then you can go at it. But if they are younger, you, or in some other way has less power, I want you to pay attention. So I start those messages really early on. So then by the time we are talking about masturbation, then I'm saying, if you find yourself liking and caring about somebody, you have to understand, especially if you are like a boy, if you are straight, you like girls, then they are socialized often to say yes when they mean no. So we need to talk about what you need to do to make sure their yes is actually really a yes. And we talk about that a lot. So the first time then they get a girlfriend, then it's, how do you really know they want to kiss you? What do they say? What do you do to make sure? So we're having these conversations. So they are, again, we're paying attention to the socialization, the gender socialization that's happening, and we're bringing those conversations in.
this is, thank you for saying that. This is so deep and so needs to be said and needs to be heard, because the power play, whether that is at a gender level, culture level, religion level, is always happening. And I see that a lot because most of my clientele is, um, women clientele. And there's just a lot of gendered stereotypes around sexual health where they don't understand what they want. And
Yeah.
then next step
Right.
is to advocate for it, right? They just don't,
Right.
because they were not allowed to. Their role was to please the person, otherwise they were going
Right.
to be left. So I think it's just so amazing that that guys get that book, because that will give you the language that all the children need to just understand, to
Yes.
make it fair, right?
Right. Right.
Because it's hard to talk about these things, but it's also very important, almost not optional, to talk about these things.
Yeah.
So another difficult thing to talk about for most grown-ups, even about themselves, is sexual pleasure. Um,
Hmm.
so uh, how do you talk to your children about sexual pleasure, and what do you recommend, um, that where does this come into conversation? Because a whole lot of talk about sex tends to revolve around safety, and it should, for obvious reasons, how to keep yourself safe. But then how do we move on and talk about sexual pleasure?
Yeah. I think again, think about pleasure as something you're talking about as they're growing, right? And why
Yeah.
your pleasure is important, why somebody else's pleasure is important, why kindness, being treated well, respecting these things all play into that, right? And so as they're getting older, then you can, again, you're still talking about, so what is it, how do you know you're being treated well? How do you know somebody cares about what you're feeling versus just what they're feeling? How do you know? What if you said, I don't want to do that, and somebody said, well, I don't care? What are they demonstrating to you? What do you want to do in that kind of situation? What if they're like, oh, she's a prude or she's a this? What if they even were mean about it? Is it worth it to say, oh, I don't want to do that? So you're having conversations that are kind of play in more with the social system that is going on, and there's, how kids are being socialized, right? And so we're helping, and if it's girls, we're helping them have voice, we're helping them know that they are important, that what they care about is worth being cared about. If somebody is not a kind of person who cares about what they care about, they don't have to be like them, but they have to care about, then are they somebody that's worth having as a friend, worth having as a boyfriend, having more as a friend? So we're talking about these things all the time, in the same way that we're helping boys, again, straight boys primarily, understand how to pay attention to other. What does other want? And I think that this actually is, when we socialize, if we socialize boys to only think about what they want and what they can do and what they can't do and how strong they are, blah, 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 but never about paying attention to other, then they're not going to be a very good partner, no matter if they're straight or gay or trans or queer in some way, whatever. So we want to teach them, if they've been socialized male, we want to teach them to learn to pay attention to other, right? To be curious, curious about other,
Mm.
all that kind of thing. Um, that's going to help. And I think with girls, again, it's trying to help them hold on to themselves in the face of someone who's only caring about themselves, and why that's important. This idea that, yeah, they might leave. We need to start that way before they've partnered, such that they're not even interested in being with somebody who doesn't care about them, right? Who
Yeah.
isn't willing to put their needs first, whatever. Because if it's a straight relationship, they are in a power dynamic, and that power
Yeah.
dynamic needs to privilege them, because the world privileges the partner.
Yeah, you're right. It starts way before, because sexual pleasure is never about sexual pleasure, right? It's just about
Right.
pleasure. And a lot of times, like when I treat people with pelvic pain and sexual pain, there's research that actually shows that their desire levels are decreasing over time. And one of the exercises I will ask women to do is, tell me 5 things that bring you joy. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
about sex.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people have to think really hard. Uh,
Yeah.
that's something, right? Like if your brain or your nervous system doesn't know how to have pleasure in life,
Yeah.
maybe that's a hot cup of tea or some alone time, it's really hard for it to suddenly switch on. And then again, going back to the socialized gender normative roles in a a hetero relationship is women sometimes think men know what to do. Why
Right.
should I know? He'll know what to do. And men were socialized to think, penis and vagina, pow, pow, pow. So
Well,
I think,
yeah. Yeah. I think they're socialized to think of what they like
yeah,
all the way around the board, right? Which
yeah,
includes sexuality, what they like. And they are not socialized on what a woman likes. That they're nowhere in our culture do we socialize men to understand women, right? That is not part of their
yeah,
socialization. So this idea that women are told that men are going to know because we gave them permission to be sexual only means that they have been maybe more sexual, but it's all been about them. They're not going to. And so
mhm,
before you even get there, it's, are they someone who cares to know about you, cares to know about how you are different from anybody else they've ever been with, cares to adapt themselves to you? Because if they're not demonstrating clearly that they care, they're not worth your time, period. That's the message that we need to be sending to women and to men, that women are going to start saying, dude, you're not worth my time. Why would I be with you? For what purpose? I can do better by myself. We already have research that shows women orgasm easier by themselves. And
yep,
it's not that men aren't capable, we just don't socialize them to understand how women are different, and women are different.
yep, yep. Lots of takeaways, lots of takeaways. But the one that comes to, but the one that I really want to sit with is, I loved what you said, that you want to get rid of this idea of the talk. It's not the bird
Yes.
and bees. It's not the talk. It's basically a bunch of microdosing that starts with just knowing yourself, then knowing your place in your world, and then inviting people that you know make you shine,
That's
for
right.
lack of a better word. But
Yeah.
if I may, can I ask you, what's the one thing you want the listeners to kind of take away when it comes to sexual health of their young ones, and how to kind of set their kiddos up for success?
Yeah. I would say first, just do do whatever work you can on taking an account of how accepting and loving are you of yourself. Where do you have messages inside of you that you're not good enough, or your body's not good enough, or pleasure isn't okay, or any of those things, or your body isn't a luscious, delicious organism to be living in, right? If you've got messages other than that, then that's just shame, and you've got work to do to heal that shame. And there's all different kinds of ways that you can do it. There's all kinds of like meditation programs and other things that you can do that'll help you start to heal. But then I would say, if you have children in your life at all, whether you're a parent or a grandparent or an auntie or whatever, an uncle, get the Shameless Parenting book. And it tells at the end of every little section, here's the kids' books to get, and here's the adult books to get. And I'm like, get them all. If you can't get them at the library, if you can't afford to get them, or you don't want to get them, that's fine. Get them at the library. Read them all. Read the kid books too, because the kid books will help parent the part of you that didn't get that when you were little. That will help heal you too. And then the adult books will help you feel more equipped to do this and not so scared to do it, because we can change the legacy in one generation. So all it takes is one parent willing to do the work themselves. They'll change it for their kid, and their kid will never work that hard ever again. Their kid will be like, yeah, this is just normal. It's just part of being human. And boy, when you see that, it's like, man, that all that work I did was so worth it. It was so
Yes,
worth it.
it sure is. It all starts and ends with you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. This has been amazing. But before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can they reach you? And if you don't mind repeating the names of your books, so it's easy for people
Sure.
to search them.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, Dr. Tina Shameless. You can find me there. You can DM me there anytime. Um, my institute is the Northwest Institute on Intimacy, and the website is nwioi.com. The Instagram is NW Institute on Intimacy. My own website is my name, tinaschermersellers.com. You can get Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy, just says, how did America become sex negative? Was it meant to be sex negative, or were there sex positive messages we just didn't get? Which the answer is yes, and they're wonderful. How to heal your shame, and then how to integrate sexuality and spirituality in a way that feels good to you. That book is out there. You can get that on Amazon. And same with Shameless Parenting, everything you need to raise shame-free, confident kids and heal your shame too. And it's kind of like a workbook, actually. It's very hands-on. It very much will give you a sense that somebody's holding your hands as you're raising your kiddos, or just have them. And a lot of people say, Tina, I don't have kids, but it's helped me heal myself. And that's been really worth it. So I would say, yeah, both those books you can get on Amazon and other booksellers. And if a bookseller doesn't have them, ask it to order it for you, because they can do that really easily. Yeah. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions, because I'm happy to respond.
Well, thank you so much. It's always something that I learn when I talk to you. So thank you for taking the time. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.